Welcome to the enchanting North Pole. It was Christmas Eve, and the North Pole was buzzing with activity. Everyone was busy preparing for the big night, when Santa Claus would deliver presents to children all over the world. Jolly Santa. After a busy day checking his list and spreading joy, we wish Santa Claus sweet dreams. Santa Claus was in his office, surrounded by piles of letters from children. He read each one carefully, making sure he knew what they wanted, and if they had been good or naughty. He smiled as he saw the names of his loyal friends, who always wrote to him every year. He also felt a twinge of sadness for those who were lonely, sick, or sad. He hoped his gifts would bring them some comfort and happiness. He checked his watch and realized it was time to go. He put on his red suit and hat and grabbed his sack of presents. He walked out of his office and greeted his wife, Mrs. Claus, who gave him a warm hug and a kiss. She handed him a thermos of hot chocolate and a plate of cookies. "Have a safe trip, my dear," she said, "and don't forget to eat and drink. You need your energy." "Thank you, my love," Santa said. "I'll be back before you know it." He winked at her and headed to the sleigh, where his reindeers were waiting for him. Busy elves. Following a day filled with crafting toys and wrapping presents, we tucked the elves in and wished them a good night. The elves had worked hard all day, making toys and wrapping them in colorful paper and ribbons. They had used their skills and creativity to create wonderful gifts for children of all ages and interests. They had also helped Santa pack his sack, making sure everything was in order and nothing was left behind. They were tired, but happy, knowing they had done a good job. They gathered in the dining hall, where Mrs. Claus had prepared a delicious feast for them. They ate and drank and sang songs and told jokes. They thanked Mrs. Claus for her kindness and generosity and gave her a big group hug. They then went to their cozy dormitories, where they changed into their pajamas and brushed their teeth. They climbed into their beds and snuggled under their blankets. They said goodnight to each other and drifted off to sleep, dreaming of the children who would receive their gifts. Little Gingerbread Man, having baked treats in Mrs. Claus's kitchen, it's time for the Gingerbread Man to rest. The Gingerbread Man was a special creation of Mrs. Claus. She had made him out of dough and decorated him with icing and candy. She had given him a smile, 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, and buttons. She had also given him a name, Gingy. Gingy loved Mrs. Claus and helped her in the kitchen. He helped her bake cookies, cakes, pies, and other treats for Santa, the elves, and the reindeers. He also helped her clean the dishes, sweep the floor, and wipe the counters. He was a good helper, and Mrs. Claus was very proud of him. Gingy also loved to explore the North Pole and make friends with the other creatures. He liked to play with the snowmen, the toy soldiers, the penguins, and the polar bears. He was curious and adventurous, and always had fun. But he also knew when it was time to go back to the kitchen and help Mrs. Claus. He always listened to her and did what she asked. He was a good boy, and Mrs. Claus loved him very much. Tonight, after baking some gingerbread cookies for Santa, Gingy said goodbye to Mrs. Claus and went to his little bed, which was made of a tin can and a napkin. He lay down and pulled the napkin over him. He said goodnight to Mrs. Claus and closed his eyes. He fell asleep and dreamed of his adventures. Hardworking reindeers. After pulling Santa's sleigh, the reindeers are ready to settle down. reindeers were Santa's loyal companions, who helped him fly around the world and deliver presents. They were strong and fast, and could fly through any weather. They were also smart and brave, and could navigate through any terrain. They were Santa's best team, and he trusted them with his life. The reindeers loved Santa and enjoyed their job. They liked to see the different places and people, and feel the wind in their fur and the stars in their eyes. They also liked to hear Santa's laugh and feel his pat on their heads. They were proud to serve him and make him happy. They also loved each other and were good friends. They had different personalities and talents, but they worked well together. They supported each other and helped each other. They had fun together and joked with each other. They were a family, and they cared for each other. Tonight, after a long and successful night, the reindeers returned to the North Pole and landed on the snow. They were tired but satisfied, knowing they had done a great job. They followed Santa to the stable, where he thanked them and praised them. He gave them each a carrot and a hug, and wished them a good night. He then left them to rest and went to his house. The reindeers ate their carrots and drank some water. They then went to their stalls, where they had soft hay and warm blankets. They lay down and cuddled with each other. They said goodnight to each other and closed their eyes. They fell asleep and dreamed of flying. Frosty Snowman. Standing tall in the winter wonderland, now the snowman gets ready for rest. The snowman was a magical being who came to life when a group of children built him out of snow and gave him a hat, a scarf, a pipe, a carrot nose, and 2 coal eyes. They also gave him a name, Frosty. Frosty loved the children and played with them in the snow. He made them laugh and taught them how to make snowballs, snow angels, and snow forts. He also told them stories and sang them songs. He was a good friend, and the children adored him. He also loved the North Pole and explored its wonders. He met the other inhabitants and learned about their lives. He admired the beauty of the ice, the trees, and the sky. He felt the joy of the season and the magic of the place. He was happy, and the North Pole welcomed him. But he also knew that he had to be careful and not stay out too long. He knew that he was made of snow and that he could melt if he got too warm. He knew that he had to stay in the cold and avoid the sun. He was wise, and the North Pole protected him. Tonight, after playing with the children, Frosty said goodbye to them and went to a spot where he had a pile of snow and a broom. He stood up and brushed off the snow from his hat, his scarf, his pipe, his nose, and his eyes. He said goodnight to the North Pole and smiled. He closed his eyes and went to sleep and dreamed of the children. Toy Soldier. Guarding the workshop all day, the toy soldier is wished sweet dreams as he rests. The toy soldier was a loyal guard who watched over the workshop where the elves made the toys. He was made of wood and painted in red and blue. He had a rifle, a helmet, and a medal. He had a stern face and a straight posture. He was a good soldier, and the elves respected him. He loved the workshop and defended it from any danger. He patrolled the perimeter and checked the doors and windows. He reported any suspicious activity and alerted the elves. He also helped the elves with their tasks and gave them advice. He was a good helper, and the elves appreciated him. He also loved the North Pole and enjoyed its peace and order. He followed the rules and obeyed the commands. He respected the authority and honored the duty. He also admired the courage and valued the honor. He was a good citizen, and the North Pole rewarded him. Tonight, after a calm and quiet day, the toy soldier returned to the workshop and saluted the elves. He thanked them for their work and wished them a good night. He then went to his corner, where he had a wooden box and a flag. He opened the box and put his rifle, his helmet, and his medal inside. He closed the box and draped the flag over it. He said goodnight to the workshop and nodded. He closed his eyes and went to sleep and dreamed of his duty. Twinkling angel, watching over the North Pole, the angel prepares to sleep. The angel was a heavenly being who came to the North Pole to watch over it and bless it. She was made of light and had wings, a halo, and a harp. She had a gentle face and a sweet voice. She was a good angel, and the North Pole loved her. She loved the North Pole and cared for it and its inhabitants. She flew over it and spread her light and warmth. She sang to it and filled it with joy and harmony. She prayed for it and protected it from evil and harm. She was a good friend, and the North Pole thanked her. She also loved the heavens. What happens next? The story continues like this. She also loved the heavens and communicated with them and their creator. She reported to them and shared her observations and experiences. She listened to them and received their guidance and wisdom. She praised them and expressed her gratitude and devotion. She was a good servant, and the heavens blessed her. Tonight, after a beautiful and peaceful day, the angel returned to the sky and greeted the stars. She thanked them for their light and wished them a good night. She then went to her cloud, where she had a pillow and a blanket. She lay down and covered herself with the blanket. She said good night to the heavens and smiled. She closed her eyes and went to sleep and dreamed of her creator.